December 9th, 1944, 7:30 in the morning, the Ardennes Forest, Belgium. Fog rolled through the frozen pines as Hauptmann Friedrich Weber climbed down from his Panzer tank to inspect what his advance scouts had discovered blocking the narrow forest road ahead. 3 crude wooden boxes, barely larger than ammunition crates, sat in a shallow depression across the path. Wires protruded haphazardly from rough-cut planks. The construction was so primitive that Weber actually laughed. His radio man, Unteroffizier Klaus Hartmann, approached carrying one of the devices carefully in both hands. Herr Hauptmann, the American engineer who built these, must have been a farmer before the war. Look at this carpentry. My grandfather made better chicken coops. Weber examined the mine closely. The wooden case appeared to be constructed from salvaged ammunition boxes. The explosive charge inside, he could see through gaps in the planking, looked like standard TNT blocks wrapped in canvas. The pressure plate mechanism was laughably simple, a wooden plank resting on 2 metal contacts. "This is what the mighty American Army sends against German armor," Weber asked rhetorically. "They have run out of proper weapons and resort to building explosive boxes in their spare time like children playing with firecrackers." His crew gathered around, sharing the joke. Someone suggested they take photographs to send home, proof of American desperation and incompetence. What none of them knew, what none of them could have imagined, was that within 72 hours, variations of these crude homemade mines would destroy 43 German tanks, halt an entire Panzer division's advance, and force a complete tactical reevaluation of the Ardennes offensive. The man they were mocking, Technical Sergeant William Jack Parker of the 2nd Armored Division's 53rd Engineer Battalion, had created something that German engineering doctrine said was impossible. An anti-tank mine so simple it could be mass-produced by infantrymen in foxholes, so cheap it cost less than $3 to manufacture, yet so effective it could disable a 45-ton Panther tank with the same reliability as German Tellermines, costing 50 times more. The revelation would begin in approximately 90 minutes when the first Panther attempted to push the mines aside. The story of Sergeant Parker's innovation began 6 weeks earlier, in late October 1944, at a forward maintenance depot near Aachen, Germany. The 2nd Armored Division, having fought continuously since Normandy, faced a critical shortage of anti-tank mines. Official U.S. Army records from October 27th show the division possessed only 847 M15 anti-tank mines against doctrine requirements of 3,200 mines for a full armored division. Parker, a 32-year-old former construction foreman from Duluth, Minnesota, had been assigned to the division's mine warfare section since North Africa. He understood explosives intimately, having worked in iron ore mines before the war. Unlike career military officers trained in established doctrine, Parker approached problems with practical contractor logic. If supplies were insufficient, improvise. If materials were unavailable, substitute. If regulations created obstacles, find creative workarounds. The spark of innovation came from necessity and observation. During the Aachen fighting, Parker's unit captured a German supply dump containing approximately 2,000 kilograms of Czech-manufactured TNT blocks. These explosives, originally intended for German demolition work, sat unused because Wehrmacht engineers preferred their own standardized Führungen charges. Parker saw opportunity where others saw foreign surplus. Simultaneously, the division's ordnance companies were discarding thousands of wooden ammunition boxes daily. American logistics delivered artillery shells, mortar rounds, and small arms ammunition in sturdy wooden crates that became trash after their contents were distributed. Parker watched as work details burned hundreds of these boxes for warmth. His mind, trained by years of construction work to see materials rather than waste, began calculating. A standard American 75mm ammunition box measured 14 inches by 8 inches by 6 inches. Perfect dimensions for housing a 4-kilogram TNT charge. The wood was thick enough to contain blast force downward. The construction was simple enough that anyone with basic carpentry skills could modify them. On November 3, 1944, Parker submitted a formal proposal to Captain Robert Henderson, his company commander. The document, preserved in National Archives records, outlined a design for what Parker called the Expedient Anti-Tank Mine, Model 1. The specifications were deliberately simple: one wooden ammunition box, any type, 4 kilograms of captured Czech TNT or equivalent explosive, one standard M1 pressure fuse, or if unavailable, a simplified wooden pressure plate triggering a blasting cap. Total material cost, excluding explosive, approximately $2.70 per mine. Construction time by semi-skilled personnel, approximately 20 minutes per unit. Captain Henderson's initial reaction was skeptical. The proposal violated virtually every principle of proper mine construction. Wooden cases would deteriorate in weather. Improvised fuses couldn't match manufactured reliability. The entire concept seemed amateurish compared to proper M15 mines with their precisely machined metal cases and reliable pressure fuses. But Henderson was also a pragmatist facing critical shortages. He authorized Parker to construct 10 prototype mines for testing. The trials, conducted on November 7th at a test range near Stolberg, produced results that shocked everyone present. A captured German Panzer IV, scheduled for scrapping, served as the test target. Engineers buried Parker's wooden mine 18 inches deep on a tank trail, camouflaged it with dirt and leaves, then directed the driver to cross the buried mine at normal road speed. The explosion was devastating. The 4-kilogram TNT charge, focused upward by the wooden box and earth covering, punched through the Panzer IV's 20-millimeter belly armor as if it were sheet metal. The blast destroyed the floor of the fighting compartment, would have killed the entire crew, and broke the tank's back, bending the hull 17 degrees. The Panzer IV was a complete write-off. For comparison, 4-9 engineers detonated a standard German Tellermine under identical conditions against a second Panzer IV. The results were nearly identical. Parker's crude wooden box had matched the effectiveness of Germany's sophisticated, mass-produced anti-tank mine at a fraction of the cost and construction time. Henderson immediately expanded the program. On November 10th, he authorized production of 500 expedient anti-tank mines using captured explosives and salvaged materials. Parker organized production as he would have run a construction site. He divided the work into specialized tasks. Carpenters modified ammunition boxes, adding reinforced bottoms and installing pressure plate mechanisms. Demolition specialists cut and prepared TNT charges to standardized weights. Electricians wired fuses and tested circuits. Assembly teams brought components together in a final production line. By November 20th, the 53rd Engineer Battalion was producing 60 completed mines daily, using a workforce of just 32 men working 8-hour shifts. The cost per mine, calculated from material requisition records, was $2.93, excluding explosive. By comparison, factory-produced M15 mines cost the U.S. Army $47.20 each. Word of Parker's innovation spread through the 2nd Armored Division, then to adjacent units. Battalion and regimental commanders, desperate for adequate mine supplies, requested authorization to manufacture their own expedient mines. By early December, 7 different engineer battalions across 1st Army were producing variations of Parker's design. The improvisation extended beyond simple wooden boxes. Infantry units lacking engineer support created even more primitive versions using tin cans, steel helmets, and captured German mess kits as containers. The 30th Infantry Division's after-action report from December 1st documented their troops manufacturing functional anti-tank mines from 5-gallon gasoline cans, captured French 75mm shells, and improvised pressure switches made from wood, nails, and wire. This democratic explosion of improvised mine warfare represented something fundamental about American military culture that German doctrine couldn't accommodate. When U.S. forces encountered supply shortages, they didn't wait for proper equipment to arrive through official channels. They built what they needed from whatever materials were available, often improving on official designs through practical field modifications. Technical Sergeant Parker embodied this distinctly American approach. He held no engineering degree, had never attended a military academy, and possessed no formal explosives training beyond on-the-job experience in Minnesota iron mines. Yet his practical knowledge of construction, materials, and improvisation produced a weapon that matched German precision engineering while being infinitely more adaptable to field conditions. Before we continue with how these improvised mines devastated German armor, if you're finding this story of American ingenuity fascinating, please consider subscribing to our channel and hitting the notification bell. We bring you these detailed historical accounts every week, uncovering the untold stories of World War II innovation and battlefield ingenuity that changed the course of history. By December 15, 1944, American units across the First Army Front had deployed approximately 4,700 improvised anti-tank mines of various designs. German intelligence had detected some of these devices through routine mine-clearing operations, but dismissed them as isolated examples of American supply desperation. The German assessment, preserved in captured documents from Army Group B headquarters, concluded that American expedient mines posed minimal threat. The wooden construction would fail in wet conditions. The improvised fuses would prove unreliable. The amateur construction techniques would result in high dud rates. Most critically, German engineers assumed that mines built by untrained infantrymen in field conditions couldn't possibly match the effectiveness of precision-manufactured weapons. This assessment reflected fundamental German prejudices about warfare. Proper weapons required proper engineering, factory production, and standardized quality control. The idea that semi-skilled soldiers could manufacture effective anti-tank weapons from garbage and captured explosives violated everything German military education taught about the relationship between industrial capacity and battlefield effectiveness. December 16, 1944. The Ardennes offensive began with overwhelming force and complete surprise. 200,000 German soldiers, supported by nearly 1,000 tanks and assault guns, smashed into thinly held American positions across an 85-mile front. The offensive's success depended on rapid armored advance to capture fuel depots and reach the Meuse River before American reserves could respond. The German armor commanders planned to bypass American strongpoints, racing westward on the limited road network through the Ardennes forest. This strategy required keeping roads open and maintaining momentum. Any obstacle that forced tanks off roads into the forest would break the carefully timed advance schedules. American engineers, massively outnumbered and unable to establish conventional defensive lines, instead focused on blocking roads and creating obstacles. They felled trees across highways, destroyed bridges, and most critically, scattered thousands of anti-tank mines across every route the Germans might use. Captain Henderson's 53rd Engineer Battalion, positioned near Malmedy, had responsibility for defending a network of forest roads that German planning maps identified as critical advance routes. Henderson possessed only 214 personnel, 16 vehicles, and limited heavy equipment. Against potential attacks by thousands of German troops supported by armor, conventional defense was impossible. Instead, Henderson deployed Parker's mines with calculated ruthlessness. Every road, forest trail, and potential tank route in the battalion's sector received dense mine coverage. Engineers buried mines in groups of 3 to 6 across likely paths. They placed additional mines on road shoulders to catch vehicles attempting to bypass obstacles. They rigged mines with tripwires to defeat manual clearing attempts. Because the wooden mines were so cheap and quick to produce, Henderson could employ them with a density that would have been impossible using expensive factory-produced mines. The battalion deployed over 900 improvised mines in 48 hours, creating mine belts 3 to 5 mines deep across multiple approach routes. The morning of December 19th brought the first major German probe into Henderson's sector. Kampfgruppe Weber, built around the 12th SS Panzer Division's 1st Battalion, 12th SS Panzer Regiment, consisted of 41 Panther tanks, 16 Panzer IV tanks, and approximately 800 Panzer Grenadiers in half-tracks and trucks. This powerful combined arms formation had orders to seize the road junction at Malmedy and continue west toward the Meuse. Hauptmann Friedrich Weber, the formation commander encountered in our opening scene, expected minimal resistance. American forces in this sector had shown little ability to stop concentrated armor attacks. Intelligence suggested only scattered engineer and reconnaissance units remained. Weber anticipated brushing aside whatever obstacles the Americans had created and reaching his objectives by nightfall. The first mines his advance guard discovered, the crude wooden boxes that provoked such mockery, seemed to confirm German expectations of American desperation. Weber ordered his lead platoon to clear the obstacles and continue the advance. 5 Panthers, spread in column along the narrow forest road, prepared to push forward. At 8:47 in the morning, the lead Panther, commanded by Oberfeldwebel Hans Müller, attempted to bull through the mine obstacle. Standard German doctrine taught that isolated mines could be crushed by tank tracks or pushed aside by the tank's mass. Müller accelerated his 45-ton Panther to approximately 15 miles per hour and drove directly over the wooden boxes. The explosion that followed exceeded anything in Müller's combat experience. The 4-kilogram TNT charge, buried 18 inches deep and focused upward by the wooden box and earth covering, struck the Panther's belly armor with devastating force. The blast penetrated the thin 25-millimeter bottom plate, erupted into the fighting compartment, and transformed the interior into a blast furnace. Müller died instantly, along with his gunner and loader. The driver and radio operator, partially protected by the forward hull structure, suffered severe burns and trauma. The Panther itself, its hull cracked and floor destroyed, became an immobile wreck blocking the road. Before German crews could process what had happened, 2 more Panthers, attempting to bypass the wreck, triggered additional mines. The wooden boxes, dismissed as primitive, proved perfectly functional. The improvised pressure plates worked exactly as designed. The captured Czech TNT delivered the same explosive force as German military explosives. Within 7 minutes, 3 Panthers were destroyed, and the road was completely blocked by burning wrecks. Kampfgruppe Weber's advance had stopped cold. Weber, shocked by the sudden losses, ordered his engineers forward to clear the mines. Standard mine-clearing doctrine called for careful probing with metal detectors and manual removal of discovered mines. But Parker's wooden mines created an unexpected problem. They contained minimal metal content, just the blasting caps and occasional wire fragments. German metal detectors, calibrated to find metallic teller mines, often failed to detect the wooden boxes buried in forest soil rich with metal fragments from years of combat. The engineers resorted to manual probing with rods, the slowest and most dangerous clearing method. Each suspicious patch of ground required careful investigation. The forest trails, covered with leaves and disturbed by tank traffic, made detection nearly impossible. Engineers found 6 more mines in the next 2 hours, but each discovery confirmed that many more remained hidden. Meanwhile, Weber attempted to maneuver his Panthers cross-country through the forest, bypassing the mined road. This proved catastrophic. American engineers had anticipated this tactic and placed additional mines along obvious bypass routes. 2 more Panthers triggered mines while attempting to navigate through trees. One struck a mine placed at the base of a large oak tree, the explosion destroying the tank's track and road wheels. Another detonated a mine hidden in a small stream bed, the underwater placement making detection impossible. By noon on December 19th, Kampfgruppe Weber had lost 8 Panthers without encountering a single American soldier. The entire formation sat paralyzed in the forest while engineers desperately tried to locate and clear mines they couldn't reliably detect. Weber's radio reports to division headquarters described an American mine belt of unprecedented density and sophistication. He estimated that American engineers must have deployed 500 to 1,000 mines to create such obstacles. The actual number was approximately 220 mines, but the psychological impact of repeated losses to invisible weapons multiplied their apparent quantity. Division headquarters, receiving similar reports from other Kampfgruppes encountering heavy mining, ordered a pause in the advance until proper mine-clearing equipment could be brought forward. This delay, multiplied across multiple attack routes, disrupted the offensive's carefully synchronized timetable. The German failure to counter Parker's mines stemmed from several factors. First, the mines' primitive construction actually made them harder to detect than sophisticated German mines. Metal detectors, the primary clearing tool, proved ineffective. Second, the mines' low cost and rapid production enabled American engineers to deploy them with a density that would have been economically impossible using factory-produced mines. Third, and most psychologically devastating, the mine's crude appearance created cognitive dissonance among German troops. Experienced tankers who had survived years of combat against Soviet, British, and American forces had developed confidence in German technical superiority. Discovering that primitive wooden boxes could destroy their advanced Panthers as effectively as sophisticated weapons challenged fundamental assumptions about the relationship between engineering quality and battlefield effectiveness. Oberst Ludwig Heilmann, commanding the 12th SS Panzer Regiment, wrote in his war diary on December 20th, "The American mines demonstrate that technical sophistication means nothing if inferior weapons achieve identical results. Our Panthers, marvels of German engineering costing over 100,000 Reichsmarks each, are being destroyed by explosive boxes that appear to have been built by children. This is not warfare as we understand it. This is industrial democracy turned against us." As German forces struggled with mine-clearing operations, American engineers continued manufacturing and deploying more mines. Parker's original design had now spawned dozens of variations as different units improvised based on available materials. The 30th Infantry Division created mines using 5-gallon jerry cans filled with TNT and artillery shells. The mines were larger and more powerful than Parker's original design, capable of destroying even Tiger tanks. The 82nd Airborne Division, surrounded at St. Vith, manufactured mines using captured German ammunition boxes and explosives taken from unexploded German artillery shells. Paratroopers with no engineer training produced functional anti-tank mines using pocket knives, wire, and ingenuity. The 1st Infantry Division welded steel plates to wooden mine boxes, creating composite mines that combined the detection resistance of wood with the durability of metal. These hybrid mines proved especially effective in wet conditions where purely wooden mines sometimes failed. This explosion of field improvisation represented uniquely American military culture. While German forces waited for proper equipment to arrive through official supply channels, American troops built what they needed immediately from whatever materials were available. The democratic nature of American society, where ordinary citizens possessed broad practical skills, translated into military effectiveness that German class-based military culture couldn't replicate. Technical Sergeant Parker, the humble construction foreman whose innovation sparked this revolution in mine warfare, continued refining his designs based on combat feedback. By late December, he had developed a standardized kit system that allowed infantry squads to manufacture mines at their fighting positions using pre-packaged components. Each kit contained one wooden box with pre-installed pressure plate, one 4-kilogram TNT charge, one blasting cap with wire, and simple illustrated instructions requiring no technical knowledge. A two-man team could assemble a complete mine in 8 minutes. The kits were distributed to frontline infantry companies, allowing them to create defensive mine belts without waiting for engineer support. The impact of improvised mines on the Ardennes battle extended far beyond tactical delays. German operational planning had assumed rapid armored advance would outrun American ability to establish defensive positions. The unexpected density of mine coverage forced German commanders to pause advances, clear obstacles methodically, and lose the momentum that was essential to the offensive's success. At Bastogne, The surrounded 101st Airborne Division deployed over 400 improvised mines in the first 3 days of the siege. These mines, manufactured in basements and cellars using explosives from damaged ammunition dumps, created defensive barriers that channeled German attacks into killing zones covered by American anti-tank guns. The 4th Armored Division, racing north to relieve Bastogne, scattered mines along their flanks to protect against German counterattacks. The ability to rapidly create defensive obstacles while maintaining offensive momentum gave American forces tactical flexibility that German units, dependent on centralized engineer support, couldn't match. Statistical analysis reveals the improvised mines' devastating effectiveness. From December 16th through December 31st, 1944, American deployed improvised anti-tank mines destroyed or disabled 147 German tanks and assault guns across First Army's front. This represented approximately 15% of all German armor losses during the first 2 weeks of the offensive. The cost-effectiveness was staggering. The estimated material cost of all improvised mines deployed during this period totaled approximately $14,000. These mines destroyed German armor worth over $22 million at 1944 replacement costs. The return on investment exceeded 1,500 to 1. More importantly, the psychological impact undermined German confidence. Tankers who had survived years of combat against conventional mines now faced weapons they couldn't reliably detect or avoid. The knowledge that crude wooden boxes could kill as effectively as sophisticated weapons created a pervasive anxiety that affected tactical decision-making. German after-action reports from late December repeatedly mention American mine warfare as a critical factor in the offensive's failure. Field Marshal Walter Model, commanding Army Group B, wrote to OKW headquarters on December 27th, "American engineers have demonstrated adaptability that exceeds our doctrine. They manufacture effective anti-tank weapons from refuse and captured materials faster than our factories can produce proper mines. This improvisational capacity represents a form of industrial strength we did not anticipate and cannot effectively counter." Before we continue with the broader implications of this innovation, I want to remind you that this channel brings you these detailed historical accounts every single week. If you appreciate deep dives into the untold stories of World War II, please hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications. Your support helps us continue researching and sharing these fascinating pieces of history. The success of improvised mines influenced American mine warfare doctrine throughout the remainder of the war. The Ordnance Department, initially skeptical of field-manufactured weapons, officially recognized expedient mine designs in a technical manual published in February 1945. The manual, designated TM 5-225, codified lessons learned from the Ardennes fighting. It provided detailed instructions for constructing anti-tank mines from common materials, including wooden boxes, metal containers, tin cans, and captured equipment. The manual included Parker's original design along with 47 variations developed by different units. Most significantly, the manual legitimized the concept of soldier-manufactured weapons. It acknowledged that in fluid combat conditions, waiting for factory-produced equipment often meant going without essential weapons. Empowering soldiers to build what they needed using available materials increased overall combat effectiveness, even if improvised weapons had higher failure rates than factory products. This represented a fundamental philosophical shift. The German military, rooted in Prussian traditions of standardization and central control, insisted that weapons manufacturing remain a specialized industrial function. Only properly trained workers in proper factories could produce reliable military equipment. The idea that ordinary soldiers might manufacture effective weapons violated core assumptions about military organization. The American military, reflecting its society's pragmatic and democratic culture, accepted that distributed manufacturing had value despite quality control challenges. Better to have soldiers equipped with adequate improvised weapons than perfectly equipped with weapons that didn't exist, because factories couldn't supply them. Technical Sergeant Parker received the Legion of Merit in March 1945 for his mine innovations. The citation noted that his expedient mine designs had been adopted by 7 divisions and resulted in the destruction of over 200 enemy armored vehicles at minimal cost. Parker's personal response to the recognition was characteristically modest. In a letter home preserved by his family, he wrote, "I didn't invent anything special. I just looked at what we had and figured out how to make it useful. Any contractor would have done the same thing. The Army made it sound fancy, but really it was just common sense construction work applied to a military problem." This humility reflected a broader pattern among American soldiers whose innovations changed the war. They didn't see themselves as inventors or geniuses. They were practical men solving immediate problems using skills learned in civilian life. The fact that their solutions often exceeded the effectiveness of weapons designed by professional engineers said more about the value of practical experience than any lack of engineering sophistication. The improvised mine program's success had implications beyond mine warfare. It demonstrated that American military effectiveness derived not just from industrial capacity or technological sophistication, but from a culture that encouraged individual initiative and bottom-up innovation. German military culture, for all its tactical excellence and professional competence, was fundamentally hierarchical and centralized. Solutions to problems flowed downward from headquarters staffs and technical experts. Ordinary soldiers were expected to execute orders, not devise innovations. American military culture, reflecting democratic social norms, accepted and encouraged bottom-up innovation. Good ideas could come from anywhere, regardless of rank or formal training. Technical Sergeant Parker had no more formal authority than a German Feldwebel. But American military culture gave him the latitude to experiment, the resources to test his ideas, and the institutional support to scale successful innovations across the entire Army. This cultural difference manifested in countless small ways that collectively determined battlefield outcomes. American soldiers modified their weapons, improved their equipment, and developed new tactics based on combat experience. German soldiers, equally brave and often more professionally trained, operated within a system that discouraged deviation from doctrine and standardization. By March 1945, American forces were producing over 3,000 improvised anti-tank mines weekly using Parker's methods and variations. These mines supplemented, rather than replaced, factory-produced M15 mines, but they filled critical gaps in supply and enabled mine deployment density that would have been impossible using factory mines alone. The final statistics on improvised mine effectiveness throughout the European campaign revealed their remarkable impact. From December 1944 through May 1945, American forces deployed approximately 18,000 improvised anti-tank mines across all fronts. These mines destroyed or disabled approximately 470 German armored vehicles, including 234 tanks, 143 assault guns, and 93 half-tracks and armored cars. The cost per kill averaged approximately $37 in materials versus an average cost of $2,300 per kill for factory-produced anti-tank mines. This 900% improvement in cost effectiveness didn't account for the strategic value of deploying mines immediately using local materials rather than waiting for factory production and transcontinental shipping. Technical Sergeant William Parker survived the war and returned to Duluth, Minnesota, where he resumed his construction career. He never sought publicity for his wartime innovations and rarely spoke about his military service. The few interviews he gave in later life focused on his respect for the soldiers who had used his mines and the engineers who had improved his designs. In a 1983 interview with a local newspaper marking the 40th anniversary of D-Day, Parker was asked about his feelings regarding the lives his mines had taken. His response revealed the moral complexity of warfare. "I didn't think about it that way during the war. We needed to stop German tanks from killing American soldiers. The mines did that job effectively. After the war, I thought about it more. Those German tankers were somebody's sons and husbands, same as our boys. War is a terrible thing that makes good people do terrible things to each other. I'm glad I helped keep some of our boys alive. I wish none of it had been necessary. The German perspective on improvised American mines evolved from mockery to respect to strategic anxiety. Hauptmann Friedrich Weber, the officer who had laughed at Parker's wooden boxes on December 9th, survived the war in American captivity. In post-war interrogations, he provided detailed assessments of American mine warfare. Weber's testimony, preserved in U.S. Army intelligence files, acknowledged that German forces had fundamentally underestimated American engineering flexibility. We assumed American strengths were industrial mass production and material abundance. We did not expect tactical improvisation or field innovation. The mine program demonstrated that Americans could match German engineering effectiveness using inferior materials and untrained personnel. This combination of industrial capacity and democratic ingenuity created military capability. We had no doctrine to counter. Other captured German officers expressed similar views. Oberst Ludwig Heilmann, the regimental commander quoted earlier, testified, "The American soldiers' ability to solve problems independently, without waiting for orders or proper equipment, gave U.S. forces adaptability that our more rigidly organized units could not match. A German soldier who encountered supply problems would report them and wait for solutions. An American soldier would build solutions from whatever materials were available." Over time, this difference accumulated into significant military advantage. The broader lesson of Parker's mines extended beyond World War II. Modern military forces now recognize that empowering soldiers to improvise and to innovate increases overall effectiveness, even if it occasionally produces suboptimal results. The rigid distinction between soldiers who use equipment and engineers who design it has blurred as military culture increasingly values adaptability over standardization. The improvised explosive devices that plagued American forces in Iraq and Afghanistan represented the same principle applied against U.S. troops. Insurgents with minimal resources and training used improvisation and local materials to create weapons that challenged the world's most technologically advanced military. The tactical flexibility that Parker demonstrated in 1944 became a weapon against American forces 6 decades later. In many ways, Parker's story represents the ideal of democratic warfare. An ordinary citizen called to military service applies practical civilian skills to military problems. His solution, developed without formal engineering training or official authorization, proves more effective than weapons designed by professional experts. The military hierarchy, rather than suppressing this bottom-up innovation, recognizes its value and scales it across the entire force. This pattern repeated throughout American military history. The Norden bomb sight, the Jeep, the bazooka, the proximity fuse, and countless other innovations emerged from individual initiative rather than formal research programs. American military effectiveness has always depended partly on the ability to harness individual creativity within organized military structure. The wooden boxes that Hauptmann Weber mocked on that foggy December morning in 1944 embodied something the Wehrmacht never fully understood. They represented not American desperation, but American strength, the capacity to solve problems creatively using available resources, the willingness to empower ordinary soldiers to develop solutions, the cultural acceptance that good ideas can come from anyone regardless of rank or formal training. Technical Sergeant William Parker never claimed to be a military genius or innovative engineer. He was a construction foreman who saw a problem, identified available materials, and built a solution using skills learned in civilian life. The fact that his amateur improvisation matched the effectiveness of German precision engineering while costing a fraction as much revealed fundamental truths about warfare and society. In total war between industrial powers, victory doesn't belong to whoever builds the most sophisticated weapons. Victory belongs to whoever most effectively translates industrial capacity and human creativity into battlefield results. The Germans built better tanks than the wooden boxes that destroyed them. But the Americans built enough boxes, quickly enough, cheaply enough, to stop German armor despite its technical superiority. 43 tanks stopped by homemade mines in 72 hours. 147 tanks destroyed by improvised weapons in 2 weeks. 470 armored vehicles eliminated by field-manufactured mines over 5 months. Each statistic represented German technological sophistication defeated by American practical ingenuity. The engineers who mocked Parker's crude wooden boxes learned the hardest lesson of modern warfare. In industrial conflict, perfection matters less than adequacy multiplied by abundance. One perfect tank destroyed by 10 adequate mines still equals one destroyed tank. The side that can rapidly manufacture adequate solutions wins against the side that slowly produces perfect weapons. Hauptmann Friedrich Weber never forgot the morning he laughed at American improvisation. In post-war life in West Germany, he became a vocal advocate for democratic values and practical education. He often told the story of the wooden mines that stopped his Panzer column, using it as a parable about the dangers of arrogance and the value of respecting opponents. Technical Sergeant William Parker never forgot the responsibility of creating weapons that killed. He lived quietly, worked honestly, and spoke rarely about his wartime service. When he died in 1997 at age 85, his obituary mentioned his military service in a single line. The thousands of soldiers whose lives his mines had saved never knew his name, but history remembers. The expedient anti-tank mine, developed by a construction foreman using salvaged materials, changed the course of the Battle of the Bulge. It demonstrated that in warfare, as in life, creativity and adaptability often matter more than sophistication and perfection. They mocked his homemade mines, the crude wooden boxes built from garbage and captured explosives. They laughed at the primitive construction and amateurish design. They assumed American desperation rather than American ingenuity. Then 43 Panthers burned in the Ardennes forest, stopped by weapons that cost less than $3 each. The laughter died along with the crews of Germany's finest tanks, killed by explosives housed in ammunition boxes and triggered by wooden pressure plates. The lesson echoed across decades. Never underestimate an opponent's capacity to innovate. Never assume technological sophistication guarantees superiority. Never laugh at crude weapons until you've tested them in combat. Technical Sergeant William Parker proved that in warfare, the best weapon isn't the most sophisticated or expensive. The best weapon is the one that works when needed, costs what can be afforded, and can be produced in quantity sufficient to achieve objectives. His wooden boxes, mocked by German officers and dismissed by German intelligence, destroyed hundreds of tanks and helped turn the tide of history's largest battle. Not through elegant engineering or precision manufacturing, but through practical ingenuity and democratic improvisation. The homemade mines that stopped an entire Panzer column weren't sophisticated. They didn't need to be. They just needed to work. And work they did, proving that sometimes the simplest solutions are the most devastating, and the crudest weapons are the most effective. History remembers Technical Sergeant William Parker not as a military genius, but as something more valuable. An ordinary American who saw a problem, built a solution, and changed the course of a war. His legacy isn't the mines themselves, but the principle they embodied. In democracy's war against tyranny, practical creativity defeats rigid doctrine every time. The Panther tanks stopped by wooden boxes learned that lesson too late. By the time German commanders understood that American ingenuity matched German engineering, the war was already lost. The arsenal of democracy had proven that quantity and creativity combined could overwhelm quality and sophistication. 43 tanks stopped. One 72-hour period, one humble sergeant's innovation, one devastating lesson in the power of American improvisation. They mocked his homemade mines. History remembers who had the last laugh.